Medical information obtained from our website or on the live show is not intended to be a substitute for professional care. If you have, or you suspect you might, have an illness or other medical condition, you should consult a healthcare provider. The opinions expressed on this radio program are not necessarily those of the sports doctor, this radio show, or their sponsors.
Hey everybody, welcome live from Chicago. It's the Sports Doctor. I'm Dr. Bob Weil, sports podiatrist. All things sports medicine, fitness, and wellness. Brought to you by Global Schoolwear, school uniforms by Tommy Hilfiger, Lower Extremity Review, and MVP Parent Magazines, and UK Health Radio. Great show today. Heather Davis, she's the leading dietitian nutritionist with Nutrisense. Engaging with your body's glucose levels for optimum health is joining me. And then we're going to discuss some of my recent articles, one on pickleball, the other on hoverboarding, training for both of them. And then some Bob Guide of Wisdom, some emails. First, Heather Davis, welcome to the Sports Doctor.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
You know, Heather, nutrition is such a big-time topic for years on the Sports Doctor. Give us some background on yourself and Nutrisense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. Nutrition is one of these perennial topics. I've been in the field personally of nutrition as a dietitian for over a decade. And I think just in the course of my career, both pre-dietitian, where I was also working in nutrition, but less officially, and then post, I've really just continued to see the field evolve in so many ways, as I'm sure you've seen and all of your listeners have seen, where once you learn something one year, you're going to learn something new about that same topic next year, and you're going to have to stay on your toes, because a lot of times what we thought 5 years ago, 10 years ago about nutrition is proven wrong or evolves in some way as time goes. So it's an exciting field that keeps you on your toes.
The whole idea of diets, you can't watch television for 5 minutes without seeing a commercial about diets or weight loss, or commercials about drugs. Obesity is such a gigantic problem. There's not a serious sports team at almost any level that doesn't take nutrition very, very seriously. And the interesting part of with Nutrisense, with glucose levels, people to reach their wellness goals by combining insights from continuous glucose monitors, as well as your world of expert dietitian. Is that what Nutrisense is all about?
Yeah, so we really consider ourselves a metabolic health company first and foremost. And what that means is we are trying to offer a comprehensive support approach with our members. We bring in insights from the continuous glucose monitors and the CGMs, and you'll definitely see those in our ads and across all of our messaging. But we go far beyond glucose and that CGM data. And the dietitian support that we have, which our nutritionists include dietitians, registered dietitians, as well as certified nutrition specialists. So we are all board certified and nutrition licensed nutritionists. We take that CGM data, we take your other metabolic health markers, symptoms of metabolic health, which we can get into, we look at labs, we look at all sorts of things. We do deeper nutritional analysis with you, and then we combine all of this to really help you customize your approach to wellness, to reaching your individual goals, whether or not that's weight loss or trying to prevent things like diabetes in the future, chronic conditions over time, developing.
These are epidemic. Obesity is epidemic. I've been talking about childhood obesity for decades. Is epidemic.
Yeah.
And so is the nightmare of diabetes. So I like that term, the metabolic health. That's a great label when we're talking about, again, measuring and being aware of where you're at, whether you're the best athlete in the world or their grandmother, or a young child, again, where we're seeing such challenges in health in all different areas. Where do you see, Heather, as a dietitian, clinician, the glucose monitoring fitting in? Is it because, again, what I just mentioned, that preventing and staying away from diabetic concerns is such a big deal?
Well, that's a great question. I think it really goes beyond where a lot of our early ideas about the scope of CGMs kind of were headed. So we often think about monitoring glucose, of course, for diabetes and diabetes prevention, or in the cases of prescription CGMs for the management of diabetes. But as CGMs have become more accessible to the general public, we have been able to use them not only for monitoring glucose for prediabetes or diabetes, but in addition to that, athlete CGM use is a very rapidly growing area of the research in non-diabetic populations. So we see a lot of exciting stuff happening there, which can help with things like
the idea, again, not being, you're not a weight loss situation, you're a health and wellness situation. And again, the idea of being able to, number one, be aware of where that population is at. Again, whether it's the senior citizen population, whether it's the athletic population, whether it's the adolescent population, the idea of proper nutrition is such a big deal. And there are so many different, we're thrown at about the only thing we agree on probably is that fast food's not good for us. Otherwise,
right.
You're right. You understand what the challenges are with the three words that the sports medicine always pays big attention to. The first word is awareness, where we are and what we're dealing with, and the second word is education, and the third two words is positive action. I want to ask you about all of those different areas. Everybody listening to the Sports Doctor, I'm Dr. Bob Weil, sports podiatrist. If you go to my website, sportsdoctorradio.com, if you go over to radio shows, you can go back years, international guests, national guests, local guests, all sorts of topics in the world of sports medicine, health and wellness. If you go to newspaper articles, magazines, you'll read a lot of great stuff, including my hottest article, which still remains, Women in High Heels, accepting the challenge. We have thousands of followers. We do a lot of information in these areas on both LinkedIn as well as Twitter. You can catch me at SportsDoc, DOC Radio. We're talking dietetics. We're talking nutrition with one of Nutrisense's leading advocates, Heather Davis. And we were just talking about, the myriad of areas that this seems to be so important. The wearables are such a big deal now in all areas of health, fitness, and wellness, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They're certainly growing in popularity by leaps and bounds. And I think one of the main reasons for that, too, is just the increasing focus on people wanting to personalize, customize things, get real-time feedback about their individual body's response to things. And that's also what we are striving for at Nutrisense with our use of the CGMs alongside the comprehensive approach as a whole, where our dietitians are really taking that data, combining it with a lot of other metabolic markers and insights to customize. And like we were just talking about, the different types of people that this can benefit are vast. There are really so many different types of people, whether it's someone coming in as an athlete or fitness enthusiast wanting to figure out how to zero in on an ideal fueling strategy, or whether it's someone struggling with some hormonal imbalances, trying to figure out to what extent glucose or other lifestyle and dietary habits are impacting hormones like insulin. There are so many ways that we can integrate this data for your personal goals and to really
Heather,
customize.
What's the best website people could find out all about Nutrisense? Yeah,
you can head to our website, nutrisense.io, and I believe we'll have a link for that somewhere today from our talk here. But that is a great place to check out our different subscription plans.
What has been, Heather? What's been the medical community, the pediatric community, the gerontology community response to the science and the things that you're talking about with all the aspects of the metabolic measuring, individualized programs? How's been the medical community's feedback that you've seen?
Yeah, I think that is certainly a long discussion because,
right.
that's what I would say it really ranges across, it runs the gamut, because on one side you have people who are saying, well, we need more data in order to allow us to apply the CGMs for the non-diabetic population. And that's, of course, true because we are still early on in our data.
That's why you have to be an educator, because, again, the idea that any kind of glucose measuring has nothing to do with diabetes is a whole different world of education, which is why we're doing the show here. So we can allow you to expand this type of information to a lot of your different colleagues. Again, the whole area of dieting and the whole challenge, pre-game meals used to be hamburgers and, whatever it would be. And that whole science has gotten so more dramatic. What are the age groups that you are seeing Nutrisense concentrating on, roughly?
Yeah,
all of them?
Our members, we don't work with people under 18 right now, so we're working with adults. Within that population, I would say we see a large percentage of people kind of falling within, I'd say, 30s through 50s, that kind of zone right there.
Well, I got news for you. With childhood obesity being what it is, and the fact of where we are in the adolescent, junior high school population, that's where more attention has to be included, especially in the education-wise. Somehow getting into the schools and expanding the knowledge of families, kids, regarding the whole area of optimum nutrition, and the idea of paying attention to some of these factors, especially, again, since we are dealing with such an obesity epidemic, and when we're talking, let alone general health in that regard. How's your community, Heather, of nutrition dietitians responded to what you guys are doing?
Oh, you mean outside of Nutrisense?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a good answer for this. So really, one of the main criticisms, and I like to bring this up and really address it head on, that people, not just in the nutrition, dietitian world outside of Nutrisense, but I'd say a number of medical professionals or healthcare providers outside of Nutrisense may share this criticism, is that the CGM data may not be properly handled, or if you don't understand the science behind the glucose metrics or the glucose goals, things like that, you might not be able to effectively apply that CGM data. And one thing that we talk a lot about at Nutrisense is we don't leave you with your CGM alone, right? We're not here to give you a CGM and send you off into the wilderness. We really think it's vital to pair this device with a trained healthcare professional who is credentialed, who is able to and familiar with the glucose research, who can say, these are the thresholds, this is why, this is what we know, this is what we don't know about the research, this is how we can experiment within those gray zones. And I think that's absolutely crucial, because if you don't have that guidance, if you don't have that frame of reference,
I agree. Matter of fact, the guidance makes sense regardless of what population you're part of. By the guidance, I'm talking about a nutritionist or a dietitian's guidance for all of us makes very, very big sense. what someone's individual medical history is, what their age is, what their activities are, et cetera, and having that kind of guidance and specific guidance has always made big sense. And I'm glad to see that your area branching out more than just, again, medically oriented dietitian or nutrition guidelines. And there is a difference between a nutritionist and dietitian also, isn't there?
Well, we see that nutritionist kind of is this very broad umbrella that captures everyone. Dietitians technically fit under that heading, but it also captures a lot of other certifications of varying quality, or really anyone can legally call themselves a nutritionist. So we do use the term nutritionist, but we also try to emphasize the two credentials that we focus on.
That's a difference. I knew the time would fly by, Heather. Give me quickly again the best site people could find out all about Nutrisense and what they're doing.
Yep, Nutrisense.io. Head over there and you can access all of our blog articles. We've got a wealth of information. We have more information specifically about the CGNs, about our programs, subscriptions.
Soon they'll be able to go over to that site. They'll listen to this segment. Heather Davis, Chief Nutritionist, Dietitian with Nutrisense. Thank you so much, Heather, for joining us. Hold on, Heather. We'll be right back at the Sports Doctor.
Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Hey, everybody, we're back. It's the Sports Doctor. I'm Dr. Bob Weil, sports podiatrist. We're going to be talking about, initially in this segment, an article I wrote that was before its time, the challenges with pickleball, how physical it is. Our second guest, unfortunately, wasn't able to join us. He'll join us sometime in the future. In the second segment of this particular phase, I'm going to talk about another article on safety on the hoverboards, which has become a big deal. When I first wrote the article about pickleball, it's a great story. A couple of patients of mine, David Prince, the CEO of Central DuPage Hospital at the time, his orthotics, I think, say 1986 on him, long-time tennis player with his wife, his lovely wife. And they had come into the office. I hadn't seen them in years. This is like 5 years ago. She says, my foot is really hurting me. We've been playing pickleball. And I said, what's pickleball? Never heard of it. And they then filled me in on the North Shore of Chicago, how pickleball was starting to become famous, become the most popular sport in the country. It's just incredible. And we talked about it. And I think it was September in 2021, I wrote the article about the fact that we were seeing so many injuries because mostly seniors were jumping on the exciting challenge of pickleball, and they thought they could jump right in and not have any problems. And when you think about pickleball as changing direction, moving, running, and swinging a paddle, and is really racquetball-like and tennis-like physical demands on our body. So what we wanted to really pay attention to is, number one, how especially with seniors, although now it's really gone down to all different ages, the fact that pickleball was becoming so particularly popular, and the fact that we were starting to see all sorts of foot, ankle, knee, shin problems involved with it. So I was writing the article to educate the population starting with the fact that if you want to play pickleball, you should train for it, or at least you should pay attention to strengthening your lower extremities, even your upper extremities, again, your core. So you should be doing some exercises and stretching and strengthening for your feet and ankles. Sounds familiar, doesn't it, everybody on the Sports Doctor, where we're talking about how important this is? But this was a unique situation where all of a sudden it's as if the senior population started jogging without any preparation, without any strengthening of any of their knees, their back, their hips, all of these important areas. So the idea, again, is that it's a great game. I was watching, my old patient from the 80s, John McEnroe. Remember him? There he was on the Pickleball Challenge on television on ESPN. He was teaming up with the great French player, and they were playing Agassi and Andy Roddick, and in a pickleball match where I think the winner was getting $1 million for their favorite charity, and so they were making a big deal out of how challenging this was, and et cetera. So that's what the article is about. If you want to get involved in pickleball, then pay attention to your particular exercise routine that you might be doing, and including strengthening your feet and ankles. Rubber bands is a great way. Working some balance. It's interesting how that's one of the articles in my book, hashtag Hey Sports Parents. It's the 2 essential exercises for any youth athlete at any age, any sport, any level. And number 1, it's strengthen your feet and ankles. And number 2, it is work on balance. So I'm throwing that in to this article when we're talking about the importance of these 2 areas if you want to stay out of trouble in a sport like pickleball, where, again, you are running forward and backwards. You're changing directions. You're leaning down. You're reaching. You're moving sometimes quickly, even in doubles. So that we want to be paying attention to strengthening these areas. And you wouldn't do badly to include, again, core, absolutely, your midsection, as well as some upper extremities. And again, you can get some lessons. Next week he's coming on, my chiropractic colleague, Doc Eric Williams, and he's a pickleball instructor, and he'll fill us in more with some instances, regarding that. When I mentioned the book, hashtag Hey Sports Parents, and we talk about the fact that there is, we're just talking about the senior population, there's an epidemic of overuse injuries in youth sports. We talk about it all the time on the Sports Doctor with so many great guests and organizations like Baseball Blue Book, like the National Alliance of Youth Sports, like England's Working with Parents in Sports, with our guests with proactive coaching, so many different areas dealing with youth sports, with the explosion. It's such a big business. And we're looking forward in the next few months to the long time working on documentary with the producer, Chesapeake Films co-founder, Joel Franco, out of Vegas, and the documentary Where Our Children Play, Challenge of Youth Sports. And the whole topic of dealing with these challenges, what a big business it is. And I always tell the story with Joel. He'll be on sometime in July to bring us up to date with the fact that when we first were talking about his project, probably 3-4 years ago, he was mentioning in his articles that youth sports was a $14-15 billion a year business. A year or two later, we were talking again and about the progress of it coming together. He said, it's a $16-17 billion a year business. Now that it's finally happening sometime, maybe this fall or winter, we're talking about $20-25 billion a year business, even much more than that. and some of the challenges that go into it regarding these overuse injuries. You know, one of our frequent guests, the great team physician of the New York Yankees, team orthopedist, Chris Ahmad, was talking about, wrote a couple of weeks ago, he posted it on Twitter, about he did 15 different elbow surgeries in that week's time, and half of them weren't even pitchers. And in the article, he was mentioning the fact that the famous Tommy John surgery that was made famous by Tommy John all those years ago, now is being seen in teenagers. Point being, overuse injuries, overscheduling, overdemand on these kids, both physically and mentally, is such a big challenge. Everybody's familiar with the overzealous parent on the sidelines and some of these incidences that still happen today with fighting, with arguing, with all sorts of different challenges. And the fact that probably 4 or 5 months ago, I had a long-time high school, junior high school, college coach, rather referee on the show, talking about how difficult it was to recruit referees to youth sports because of this stuff, the abuse, the overzealousness. So one of the reasons we wrote the book, and my co-author, Sharky Zartman, is a Hall of Fame volleyball player, Hall of Fame volleyball coach. She's a national team player. Her husband, Pat Zartman, I think was one of her original coaches. They ended up getting married all those years ago. Talking about her particular segment, which is so-called Sports Parenting 101. You know, what are the real values of playing sports for kids? What are the pitfalls of playing sports? What about finding the best program for your son or daughter? What is your role as a parent when it comes to youth sports? How to coach your own kid. I remember that. Nutrition is your responsibility. Recruiting, stress management, abuse. Very, very important topics when it comes to sports parenting. And the bottom line about having an essential guide for any parent with a child in sports and wanting to pay big attention to try to do the two things everybody cares about, whether it's a coach, whether it's a sports parent, whether it's a professional team. You want to be able to prevent injuries. You want to be able to stay out of trouble. And when indicated, especially at higher levels, you want to be able to enhance performance. And these are the things that we go into in the book when we get together with various experts in 8 different areas talking about the experts speaking out. Mental trainer Robert Andrews from the Institute of Sports Performance, his topic, the power triangle. Katie Davis, Dietitian Nutrition, creating a solid fueling plan at a young age. Denise McDermott, child and adult psychiatrist, youth athletics as mind medicine for life. Holly Benjamin, one of our leading sports pediatricians, talking about concussions in youth sports, what parents need to know. Ian Goldberg, founder and CEO of iSport 360, frequent guest. The behavior of overzealous sports parents on the sidelines. Dr. Dave Epperson, founder of Volleyball Festival. The 7 Habits of Savvy Sports Parents. Melissa Orth-Frey, exercise phys. Do you think you can help your child become a better athlete? Janice Meredith, certified life coach for sports parenting. What great sports parents do. Dr. Steve Horwitz, youth sports safety. So the myriad of topics that goes into this whole area of youth sports and all of these different challenges. Again, on the Sports Doctor, we pay such attention to these three words, these three areas, which is awareness, education, and positive action. We want to be aware of what we're dealing with and what some of these challenges are. We want to be aware of, in the education area, about what some of the solutions might be for some of these different challenges. And then we want to pay big attention to some positive actions, some areas we can make a difference with some of these different challenges, that we talk about. And I'm going to talk more about that along with a little feedback on my latest article on hoverboards, some of those challenges. It is the Sports Doctor, live from Chicago. Hey, we're back live from Chicago. It is the Sports Doctor. I'm Dr. Bob Weil, sports podiatrist. We are throwing in some information from the book, from articles we've written. It's funny, we're just listening to the commercial for Lower Extremity Review, and I'm going to be talking about my latest article, which will be out next month with them, as our second guest, Rich Stavakowski, was the last second not able to join us. Hey, anybody riding hoverboards out there? Believe it or not, there are a lot of you. Hoverboard continues to be an increasingly popular ride option for all ages. But these rechargeable, self-balancing scooters with electric motors and batteries require some serious attention to safety. Designed for personal transportation, today's hoverboards can reach speeds of 10 miles an hour, with this average clocking maybe at 5 to 7 miles an hour. Standing and balancing on these two wheels. Most are designed to be ridden on a flat, dry surface that is smooth off-road terrain. Then there are the all-terrain hoverboards. And we want people to know that it's very, very important to be properly educated with what's involved. There are different types of hoverboards. It can be a fun experience. With this, everybody's familiar with skateboarding and rollerblading, but hoverboard, for a lot of people, was exactly what are you talking about? And it can be a fun experience, but it also requires some physical condition and balance. They're similar to, although they're not as common, again, as skateboards or rollerblades, and they require similar amounts of training to ride safely and with ease. And I want to just mention in this article the types of potential injuries that we can be dealing with. And what are some of the tips? There are fractures, there are concussions. So we want to pay attention to some rules if you're going to be including riding on a hoverboard as well as the skateboards or whatever. And number one is to start slowly. It's important to start rolling on a slow speed or in a slow speed until you're comfortable with the hoverboard and what you need to, how your body needs to work with it. So be sure to start on a flat surface. Wear protective gear. Sometimes a tough sell, especially with these kids. Make sure to wear proper safety gear like helmets, elbow, knee, and wrist guards. Actually, mouth guards are a good idea, especially for a younger rider. You want to wear good supportive shoes, good sports shoes. You don't want to be in flip-flops or heels, even with loose sandals, because if your feet are sliding around, you could have problems. And again, falling off one of these things is always injury-causing, almost without exception. Keep your body relaxed. Avoid making sudden movements. This will help you maintain balance, reduce the risk of falling. Hey, pay attention to your posture. Keep your back straight, foot shoulder width apart. This helps maintain balance, provide better control of the hoverboard. And again, I'm throwing in, and in my article, there are pictures strengthening your feet and ankles. Does that sound familiar, sports doctor listeners? Strengthening your feet and ankles, working on balance are so key. Strengthening your core, paying attention even to upper body stability and strength makes so much difference in staying out of trouble. You're balancing on two wheels, you're moving in different directions, your body is going to be turning and twisting in various angles, and the more prepared you are, balance training, every hoverboard person, standing on tilt boards, balancing on the BOSU, balancing on the mini tram to strengthen again, including my famous instability training. Create instability, regardless of the piece of equipment, allows you to strengthen all the stabilizers, is magic if you want to be on a hoverboard. So paying attention to strengthening your posture, as well as being aware of your posture whenever you're on one of these gizmos, is very, very important. Hey, avoid speed bumps or rocky surfaces. They don't have suspension systems, although some of the newer models are starting to include this. So you want to be paying attention to avoiding speed bumps. Initially, especially, practice in an open and flat area until you're comfortable. Avoid narrow spaces, crowds, and traffic. Again, these kinds of speeds can get away from you. So you want to be able to be comfortable and confident with your practice starting slowly before you get involved in any kind of traffic and or areas with lots of people. Like I mentioned, it's smart to help train condition your body for safe riding. It's also important to remember that hoverboards are not suitable for children under the age of 12. Although some manufacturers make shortened hoverboards they claim are safe for younger kids, I would really, really be paying attention to not necessarily doing that. So another fun, and accompanying the article in Lower Extremity Review will be some statistics with all of these different kinds of problems and or injuries that I mentioned in my particular article. It's a increasingly popular, fun, even method of transportation. Like some of these different scooters and et cetera, where you're talking about small distances and maybe you're a little lazy or you want to mix in some fun, but you want to be trained on the instrument that you're on and all the different safety precautions, including an electric motor and all of that stuff with batteries. We want to be paying attention to knowing what you're dealing with whatever the particular mechanism of the hoverboard you have is, whether it's electric, with batteries, and making sure that we're not getting electrocuted, while we're trying to have fun. I want to go back to the book, #Hey Sports Parents, and I want to pay some attention to my section of the book, which is The Sports Doctor is In. And we talk about some topics like, again, keeping your child safe, what you need to know about preventing injuries, the idea of the uses of ice, when it's effective. I quote in that section my longtime guest, Gary Reinl, the author of the book, Iced, the Illusionary Treatment Option, where I don't want to say he pours cold water, but the reality is that ice, besides numbing an area for an initial injury, which can be helpful, actually slows down healing, actually hinders the exchange of fluids that go into the healing process. And it's still news to so many in the world of physical therapy, in the world of medicine, in the world of athletic training, although lots of changes have been made. Gary has been a trainer of champions on the Olympic and professional level for decades. So keeping your child safe, what you need to know, is a key topic. We're going to discuss some more of them in the next segment. It's the Sports Doctor, everybody. We're live.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Dr. Bob Weil, sports podiatrist. If you go to my website, sportsdoctorradio.com, you go over to radio shows, although we're updating, so we're missing a lot of last year, but you can go back years and listen to whatever you would like, an endless array of topics, international guests, national guests, local guests, in all areas of sports medicine, fitness and wellness, sportsdoctorradio.com. You know, in the last segment, I was just starting to highlight some of the specifics that we talk about in my book, hashtag Hey Sports Parents, co-authored with Hall of Fame volleyballer Sharky Zartman. It's available on Amazon, and all sorts of top seller lists. And one of the topics I pay attention to is the challenge of drugs and youth sports. I'm not talking about steroids. I'm talking about over-the-counter pain medicine, rampant overuse in youth sports. Typical young 13, 14-year-old, could be figure skater Dr. Weil, her ankles hurt her all the time. She takes 2 Advil every day. She takes 4 Advil every day. She can't go to volleyball practice. Her shoulders are killing her unless she takes the ibuprofen, et cetera, et cetera. To the point of normalcy in advertising that many times these families and or kids don't consider these as drugs because they're over the counter. Here's the bottom line for sports parents with few exceptions. If your son or daughter is relying on over-the-counter pain medicine to participate, you're over the line. You need to back off. You need the term I use all the time, which is intelligent rest. You might have to back off practice, running, jumping activities for a couple of weeks. You want to get a diagnosis. As a sports parent, you want to be a good listener with your son or daughter if they're hurting. Oftentimes, the physical and mental pressure to keep playing. Mom, you don't understand. I'll get cut from the team. I won't make the team. I won't be able to play, etc., because of these consistent injuries. Again, in sports podiatry, it could be foot, ankle, it could be Achilles tendon, it could be shin splints, it could be knees. We were running into these problems. So the bottom line, again, is, of course, if there's a problem with your son or daughter's complaining about, get a proper diagnosis and get a plan of remedying the situation with a supervision of the physical therapist, of the doctor, regarding when is it safe for your son or daughter to get back to sporting activity and at what level. Choosing the best shoes for your young athlete, big topic. It's just as big for you as it is for your young athlete, where we don't want hand-me-downs from the older brother or sister. We want to pay attention to being in a good brand shoe. We want to have your son or daughter fit properly. I can't tell you how often we are not fit properly. We assume by online the particular shoes. You want to ideally have a shoe designed for your son or daughter's particular sport, whether it's a running shoe, whether it's a soccer shoe, basketball shoe, tennis shoe, etc. Ideally, again, you want a shoe that's designed for your son or daughter's sports. You want to pay attention that shoe is not broken down. If you're taking a look at the back of those shoes, if the heel is either tilted in or tilted out, or the upper part of the shoe is rolled in or rolled out, you want to be replacing them. As a general rule, getting new shoes for each season makes sense. Foot mechanics and orthotics. Is your son or daughter flat-footed? Do they have high arches? Are they knock-kneed? Are they bow-legged? Many times, again, one of Bob Guida's, I'll talk about it in our segment coming up, the role of the foot in sports. He would have every athlete, whatever their level, whatever their age, balance on one foot, taking a look at, is there instability where that foot's rolling in, the knee's rolling in? Any persistent, ongoing lower extremity problem, particularly knees, shins, feet, ankles, if they're ongoing and consistent, they're almost always foot-related. Orthotics, which are prescription devices, usually made from casts or scans of the foot and ankle. We've had great success with orthotics when we're looking to stop the abuse because of that foot mechanic. A good example is a flattening, overly excessive pronated foot creates excessive torque of the whole lower leg and often knee problems. Half the young female athletes I've seen over the decades are knee trouble and shin splints. Half. And I'm a foot specialist. So the role of orthotics and the idea of paying attention to foot mechanics is a major key, especially if your son or daughter has persistent or recurring problems. The chapter on prodigy sports, one of my faves. We tell parents all the time, doctors, therapists, trainers, we tell parents all the time, we want your son or daughter playing multiple sports. We want them using different parts of the body all the time. We want different experiences with the different sports. Hey, that's great, unless your son or daughter is a figure skater or a gymnast, even tennis now and soccer, where we're seeing 11, 12, 13-year-olds, Mom, Dad, I don't want to play other sports. I want to skate 5-6 days a week. This is what I love. If that's the case, we want to pay attention. We want to plan for it. We want to see a physical therapist to come up with or an athletic trainer to come up with a specific off-ice, off-gymnastics, at-home program for strengthening the body. You know, Bob Guida, again, used to always talk about strengthen those opposites. You know, if you got a tennis player who's swinging a racket 500 times a week, you want to strengthen all the areas that slow it down, that stabilize those areas. The prodigy sports, where that's the case, repetitive motion injuries are a problem by doing everything the same. But it is an area that we have to include. The universal exercises for all sports. Again, strengthen those feet and ankles. Work balance. Include it in your son or daughter's exercise programs. Ankle injuries, still number one. All sorts of postural problems. So working on balance, incorporating those exercises are really, really important as another area that we talk about. Again, what about tackle football? Hey, there just is no safe tackle football. Parents are dealing with it all the time. It's an important topic. Be educated. The Sports Doc. We'll be right back with the Sports Doctors in segment.